Exactly 1 year ago, I was your guest and have the same opportunity to address to the distinguished audience about the future perspective of Ukraine. Exactly 1 year ago. It seems to me like it was in a different life. Such a big changes we have, not only in Ukraine, not only in Europe, but in the whole world. From first part, we have a positive changes. We have a most free and fair and democratic elections, presidential elections. And all Ukraine, first time to give the votes for me, and it was every single region of Ukraine who support me as a president. That give us a unique opportunity to provide the reform. On the 27th of June, I signed the association agreement with the European Union in Brussels. Events were longly awaited by the Ukrainian people and was one of the main reasons for the revolution of dignity. When the previous president rejected to sign it, stop our Euro integration process, and try to move, to turn the vector of our development in a different direction. On the 16th of September, this association agreement was ratified simultaneously by the Ukrainian Parliament and European Parliament for more than constitutional majority of votes. And we have a parliamentary election. This was not an easy decision to declare the early parliamentary election in a country which is in a state of war. But the further development of the events demonstrate that this is absolutely clear and right decision, because Ukrainian people demonstrate very responsible choice and give more than constitutional majority for the political parties promoting and standing strongly for the European integration of Ukraine. So now we have a completely different country. We are as united as never before. All the time, all 23 years before, Ukraine was divided. Half of Ukraine want to go to the customs union, half of Ukraine want to go to the European Union. Today, Ukraine is completely pro-European. More than 78% of Ukrainians are strongly vote for the European integration. 1 year ago, it was only 16% of Ukrainians who support the NATO integration. Today, it's far above 50%. All the time before, the question of religion, the question of language divide my country. Today, Ukraine united, and we are ready to provide a referendum for any question, including question of language, question of the structure of my country, and the unity and the unitarian status of Ukraine would be widely supported, on contrary with the federalism status, which would be support not more than 10%. So Ukraine become stronger. Ukraine become more democratic. Ukraine become much more pro-European and ready for the reform. But at the same time, Ukraine has now the most difficult time in their history. Ukraine are now under the aggression. Aggression not only connected to the annexation of the Crimea. Aggression is connected when 7% of our territory in Donetsk and Lugansk are now also occupied. And the development of the last days are very nervous. And the situation which will happen in December give us some strong hopes for optimism. From the 9th of December, when it was declared by the representative of the Ukrainian General Staff and Russian representative Minister of Defense of Russian Federation when we declare the so-called artillery silence. Immediately from the 9th of December, the number of the artillery shelling was reduced from the 70, 90 to less than 10. And I was very happy with these figures because that give us absolutely strong feeling that this terrorist who is opened the fire against Ukrainian civilian and Ukrainian troops are at least under control of Russians. And at least we implement the Minsk Agreement. Minsk Agreement, Minsk Protocol and Minsk Memorandum, which were signed on the 5th of September and 19th of September, is very simple. This is completely based on my peace plan. Point number 1, immediate ceasefire. Point number 2, from the touchline on the 5th of September, we should immediately withdraw the heavy artillery and weapons. Point number 3, immediately release all the hostages which is illegally kept on the occupied territory and on Russian prison. They kept my officer, including the pilot Nadia Savchenko, which is doing nothing wrong but defend their own country. And they was captured, delivered to Russia, and illegally detained in Voronezh prison. And this national hero of Ukraine has a hunger strike for the 38th day today. And the only thing we demand in the Minsk Memorandum, immediately release all the hostages. Point number 4, very important point. I promise you, we will have absolutely clear and stable situation in Ukraine if Russia fulfill point number 4. Close the border and withdraw all the foreign troops from my territory. Because now, and the data of our intelligence confirmed by the independent sources, we have more than 9,000 troops of Russian Federation on my territory, including more than 500 tanks and heavy artillery and armed personnel carrier. If this is not an aggression, what is the aggression? But unfortunately, and the final point of Minsk Memorandum is that immediately when we have an artillery silence, ceasefire, if we remove from the streets armed person, we declare just the very simple thing, election. Local election under Ukrainian legislation. In a democratic countries, there is not existing any other mechanism for democracy. Just the person who would be responsible for these regions of the Donetsk and Lugansk should be elected by the people. And this election should be under Ukrainian legislation, should be with the presence of the international monitoring mission, and should be recognized by the whole world. Very simple. Ukraine fulfill all the obligation from their side. And we count that Russia and the rebels supporting by Russians can do the same. Instead of that, we have first attack, which was started from the 10th of January this year. After 24 hours, I was in Paris. I was among the 50 leaders of the state on the street of the Paris in the march against the terror. And I remember the slogan on the Paris street, Je suis Charlie, and we are not afraid. We are not afraid of terror because we are united. And I was proud to be at that time on the Paris street. 2 days after March in Paris, on the 13th of January, we have the tragedy of Navaja, when Russian missile operated by Russian support rebels hit the civilian bus. And all Ukraine stand in the movement, Je suis Volonavaha, we are together with the victims of the terroristic attack on the Navaja bus, where 13 civilians, including one 14-year girl, were immediately killed by Russian missile. And 15 additional civilians were innocent victims who were wounded. I have here part of the Navaja bus with the hit of the fragments of the Russian missiles which hit in my people. And for me, this is a symbol of the terroristic attack against my country. The same way symbol like Charlie Hebdo, and the same way symbol like a terroristic attack which was done by Russian missile operating by Russian officer against MH17 flight of Malaysian airplane, which were killed 298 innocent victims from 17 countries, which demonstrate that the terror is not a problem of Ukraine, and even not the problem of Europe. This is a global problem. And the fighting against terror is our joint, we can demand our joint efforts. And we can win the terror, and we will win the terror when we will be united. Because we are not afraid. We are united. And the whole world now is demonstrating the strong solidarity with Ukraine. And I want to thank all of you for that. And the other thing I want to ask from you, not only be united, the same way like you demonstrate on the United Nations General Assembly, the same way like you demonstrate on the United Nations Security Council, the same way like you demonstrate in the G20 meeting at Brisbane, and the same way like you demonstrate in the European Union Council, and solidarity we have from all over the world, starting from the United States and Canada and finishing with Japan and Australia. We need to be solid. We need to demonstrate a solidarity with Ukraine, and the very important thing, we need to believe in Ukraine, because we are fighting for peace. I am a president of peace. I am strongly believe that there is not existing the military solution of this problem. And we need to have a very strongly coordinated action to bring the peace, not only on my country, but to bring the peace in the world. Because again, this is the line of the front when we're fighting, not only for our territorial integrity, sovereignty, and independence. We're fighting for European security. We're fighting for European values. Somebody said that this is very expensive to fight for peace. I think this is two completely different concepts of the world. They measured the expenses by price and said that this is very expensive. We and all civilized world fighting for values. Money and values, completely different things. And I think that if we are fighting for values, we win this battle. Absolutely sure.